Stephen. Super excited to have you join me this morning. Your story always really fascinated me because you're super healthy, you're massively in the holistic space. Actually, when you and I were introduced, you'd set up a CBD company, and I know since then you're doing something really exciting around omega-3 with your new company called Zinzino. But what I'm super interested to talk about is how you sort of first started, how you got into the fitness industry. I know that when you were very young, you also had a debilitating illness, and which you overcame. And I want to really sort of dig into how that changed your mindset and the way that you sort of live your life holistically and day to day. And I know from your story and sharing your experience that you're going to help so many people that are feeling anxious or stressed, depressed, going through stuff, just by teaching them how to modify maybe what they're sort of absorbing internally, supplement wise, but also sort of how they're living their lives from a nutritional and holistic basis day to day.
Yeah, good. Yeah, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your how you started into fitness, because actually you were 12 and I think the girl you fancied at school called you fat, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, it still hurts now. So yeah,
you meanie.
Pardon?
If that girl's watching this, she's a little meanie.
Yeah.
But actually, did you a favour?
I've got a funny story actually when I bumped into her when I was 30, and quite a funny story. But I can share that as well if you like. But basically, when I was obviously in the first year at comprehensive school, so I used to be attracted to a girl who was like the hottest chick in school. Everyone fancied her, and I was a bit of a cheeky chappy. I got a lot of confidence, so I was probably the first person to have the courage to ask her out, and she just said, "No, you're fat," basically. And I wasn't like, I wasn't big fat kid or anything, but I was just like a normal child, a bit of puppy fat if you want to. Yeah, that just loose, and maybe a bit on the hips, and most children would probably go home crying about that, and might even develop some eating problems from that, and we see it all the time in children. But I was quite fortunate that my uncle was a physique model, so natural physique model, trained every day. Really healthy, and a really great guy and open, my mum's brother. So they lived near my parents' house. So I went home that evening, obviously a bit upset, and I went down to see my uncle and just had a chat with him. And I said, I got called fat at school. Would it be okay to come to the gym with you? And this was when like gyms, there were no like pure gym and multi gyms. They were just like your old church gyms and like communal centre gyms and things. There wasn't any big gym chains back then. We're talking 26 years ago.
With rusty sort of weights.
With the ropes and with the ropes and things like that. With the rope pulleys rather than cables. So basically, my uncle said to me, look, he said, I'll meet you every morning at 6 o'clock at the gym, which were a bike ride for me to the gym. He said, I've got your omega-3, got you some protein, some clean protein. You're going to drink a gallon of water a day, 2 or 3 meals a day with protein, fish, and some leafy greens. Really, really regimental. And my mum was like a little bit, this is a bit mad, but she just let me go with it. And he said, but I'll pay for your supplements and your gym, which were like a few pounds a week at the time. You just paid weekly cash, one of them kind of gyms, like a Rocky gym. And he said, but if you're late or if you miss a day, then the deal's off. And this is a thing what we're going to do together. A bit like what a personal trainer should do with a client, give them that accountability where if you miss a session, the game's over. So I never missed a session, and we trained like Monday, Tuesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday mornings. We did a bit of boxing on Saturday mornings, which developed into my passion for boxing and kickboxing. But met him every morning and we trained. But then a year later, I was like one of the best rugby players in the school. We never lost a game at rugby for about 4 or 5 years. I was the fastest kid in school at 100 and 200, won quite a few competitions. I never was into football, but I was really into golf, rugby, and athletics. And my golf game went from just being an average player because of this discipline and mindset, what my uncle taught me. I would apply the same to golf. So I got off like 3 or 4 handicap quite quickly at a young age. because I practiced and disciplined myself from getting up at, 5:30, going to the gym. And then I got 2 little jobs, the paper round and the helping the little food shop, just to pay my uncle for the supplements and to save up for a new mountain bike, because I had this old mountain bike, and I had to ride to the gym every day. So within a year, I got my own job, and like little jobs before school, after the gym. So like gym, 2 little jobs. And then go to school, and then obviously work, and then do the rugby practices and everything else. So, but a year later, I probably had a physique like a 15-year-old at 12 and ripped. Yeah. I was the only kid in school that trained. So obviously that were easy for the girl then. Obviously I had quite a lot of attention then, because obviously I were in shape and everything. And it changed my mindset with all that kind of stuff. So I got known as this person who was a super healthy kid, basically. I were always lean, ripped, no matter what I ate really at that age. Even though I ate structured from my uncle, even if I ate like a bit of crap food, made no difference whatsoever. And that set the discipline for life, really, where every single day, even now, I do yoga, I train and meditate and do all the other things which I'll chat about a bit later. But I've always had that structure where I get up early. I always get up at about 5 o'clock, because my uncle taught me that when I was about 12. Early bird catches the worm, he used to say, and get up early and beat everyone to the race.
You're like a healthy kid, and you take this sort of way into your teens, and you develop that actually into a profession, don't you? Because you get into personal training, and you want to sort of give that back to the world. And then what happens in your 20s?
So when I was leaving school, I wanted to be a PE teacher, but my mum had some difficulties with a few things, so I had to support her. So I ended up starting engineering, because that was like the most paid thing at the time, and ended up having my own engineering business, team, right from like being about 17 to about 24, 23, 24, and I earned quite a good income, properties. I had quite a few properties. And what happened was, at 23, I was doing kickboxing from about 17, 18, up until that time, and training heavily, and obviously golfing and going to the gym every day. At the business as well, which were great. But I used to train twice a day, so I was super healthy, trained twice a day, shredded, always like low body fat. And I got a pain in my side. I was in Dominican Republic. We'd done some kickboxing training there and a holiday or something, as I remember. And I got this awful pain in my left side. And I just thought it was like a bit of an injury or a cracked rib or something like that. Right. But I'm a person who's never been to the doctors, with a problem. Yeah. I've had probably the odd paracetamol in my whole life, So I was in my place in Sheffield where I used to live. I live in Cheshire now. And what happened was, I just crumbled to the ground and I couldn't stand up. And it was like excruciating pain, and then it'd go off. But so I'd be like, oh, it's fine, it's a bit of an injury. But every time I ate any food, within about 30 minutes, it would be this pain which were like unbearable, like literally. I've cried maybe a couple of times in my life when my gran died and a friend died. I'm that kind of person who doesn't like share tears and emotion.
But did you think there was anything sort of seriously wrong, where you just thought you'd hurt yourself?
Yeah, well, I thought I'd hurt myself, but then like obviously my girlfriend at the time were like, you need to go to the hospital and get this checked out. So I went to the hospital, and they thought I'd got a twisted bowel. So they said they give me some medication, a bit of morphine, and then they sent me home. But it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, like almost where I couldn't even stand up, like crunched over like this in the house all the time. So I went to the hospital, and the doctor said, we did an MRI scan, and she said, you've got an appendicitis, but it's like at the bursting point. It's like literally we need to operate today. So they rushed me down into surgery, about a 5-hour operation, and they took the appendix out. But the reason for the pain is the appendix was squashing some of the bowel. So it was trapping the food. So like, the pain was when it was trying to push the food through through like a hose pipe. That's how they explained it. Right. So they cut a section out of the bowel, and obviously the appendicitis. And I had about 30 stitches in my stomach. And they said, you might have to have a colostomy bag. I had a catheter, a blood drain, and literally it was like you'd been in a car. I'd gone from like super strong. I could run through a brick wall to in a bed, like with all these tubes and things hanging. This was nothing to do with what I'll share with the actual illness, which was a lot worse than that. So I was trying to recover, obviously, in hospital for about a month, recovering from this operation. And then the day I was leaving, there was an old guy who'd had a similar operation, but he was quite overweight, and it took him, he recovered really quickly, because what the doctor said to me, when you're cutting through fibers, like muscle fibers, you imagine I was doing 1,000 sit-ups a day for a long time. He said, we've got to cut through all them fibers so they like spring open, and then obviously do the operation and then stitch it back together. So the pain were like, I had a morphine, the morphine needles, and you just press it just for the pain relief. And I was like literally pressing that every few hours. It was that bad, even after the operation. But this guy who was quite overweight, it was fine. And he said, when we cut people's skin like that, because there's no muscle fibers or not many, it's very like, it just opens, do the operation. And he went home, and I thought, all right, okay, no problem. So I'm getting punished for being healthy. That's fine. All them sit-ups, regretting. And I went to leave. It was like the day that I was meant to be leaving, and like 6 doctors, we had to go into this special room, and I thought, oh, this doesn't sound good, And I'd luckily the digestion had started working again, so I didn't need the bag on the side, which would have been, quite traumatic. So basically, they stitch it back together, but the intestines have got to start reacting again, because they just stop, they pump. So they started working again, which were lucky. And he said, basically, we found a couple of tumours, Burkitt lymphoma behind the appendix. He said, that's nothing to do with the pain, nothing to do with the operation. We just found 2, small tumours, what have been there, not too long, hopefully. They were quite small in size. But he said the appendicitis is what's really going to save you, because we would have never known about that unless you've had an appendicitis. Right. And Burkitt lymphoma, they thought it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at first, which is really high on the spectrum of lymphatic cancers. But Burkitt lymphoma is like the one above that, what not many people get. Right. It's normally found in India, apparently, and they'd not treated anyone in Sheffield for about 25 years with that kind of problem. So it's found in India generally, and I don't have any Indian descent that I know. So I'm just doing a saliva test at the moment, for the treat.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to find out where we are, and I've got a bit of time and stuff. So we're just doing that at the moment, which is interesting to find out the results. But so basically, the appendicitis was some sort of, and I'm a bit like you, I'm quite spiritual, I believe in the universe, was some kind of message to say, we need to save you, if you like. Yeah. I'm not a religious person. I believe in energy and frequency and universe. And I don't have anything against anyone who has a religion. It's just that's my belief system. Yeah. So I believe that some sort of universal message was given at that point.
There was a divine intervention from the universe, because if you hadn't had the appendicitis, you would never know about the cancer.
He said in a year's time, you'd be like, poof, it'd be everywhere, and you'd be like, survival chances would be like 1% or something stupid. So he said, basically, we need to dig up all the research and create a chemotherapy model for you. Right. Because it's like an old thing what comes from another country. So they've got like a big board, and they did all this, and he said, we need to start literally now. And it's not where you come in once a month for treatment. It's called intensive chemotherapy, where we start tomorrow and we're going to hit you hard, and it's almost like I always use it as an expression of, if you've got an ant in your garden, that kind of chemotherapy is like sending an F-1 fighter jet to kill an ant. It's that aggressive. Right. Methotrexate, which literally all your hair drops out rapidly. You can't eat anything. Yeah. So I've always been a confident, optimistic person. Glass is always half full rather than half empty. So everyone in my family were really upset, crying. Obviously, girlfriend was just traumatized, because I was known as the healthiest person in the family. Right. And I'm giving people, do that workout. So before,
what does it say for everyone else? It's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was an engineer. I wasn't a personal trainer at the time, and like I do now in nutrition and holistic stuff. But I was like a super fit person with a great business and look really healthy. So everyone were quite shocked. And I don't take sympathy very well either. So I get loads of messages and phone calls, and it made me quite annoyed, to be honest. I don't like that kind of, I'm like really old school. I just like want to get on with it. So he said, we can start in a few weeks or we can start tomorrow. So I said, let's start tomorrow. So I walked up the ward, and it's a private ward, and you get all the, you know, your own room and everything. And there's a guy, there's a room, and it said non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This guy called, I forgot his name now, I think called Leo or something. And I thought, I'm going to go have a chat to this guy and see how he's getting on, and, you know, have a little, you know, maybe give him a bit of support, and we might be able to become friends. You know, I don't know why I thought this. So I just knocked on the door and walked in like some cheeky chappy from Sheffield, and this guy was literally like a skeleton on the bed.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, and all the tubes in him, and his wife was like, and I was like, oh, I do apologise. I've just been admitted. I was just going to have a chat. So she came out, and she was like, you know, he's had it a couple of times. This could be, you know, the last few weeks and stuff. And he was 30, I think he was about 32, really nice guy. There was a picture of him before, and he's like, he was a twin, so quite ripped, and I'm thinking, shit. So the reality dropped in then, and
so
I was like,
what did that do to your mindset? Because you're obviously a very, very positive and optimistic person. You start to share that point.
Well, it kind of knocked me a little bit. I didn't tell my mother at the time. I told her years afterwards, because my mum were amazing. You know, she spent every single day in the hospital. You know. Makes me a bit emotional.
And
so yeah, but my mum is like the best.
Always a little boy, no matter what, you know. So
yeah, and so we got admitted, and then it was literally like full steam chemotherapy. Right. But the doctors
chemo, like how many weeks?
So it were like, let's say 3-4 weeks intensive, right. And then that completely depletes all your white blood cells, so you've got no defense mechanism, no immune system whatsoever. And then they put you in like an even privater room with a mask and gloves, and you're only allowed 2 same visitors, and you know, it's quite strict. But and I don't want to get too cringe on it, but the worst thing was, and because my dad used to come every lunchtime from work and obviously spend time with me, it was obviously you don't want to eat, because when you eat food, obviously, we know the result of eating food, you've got to get the waste out. And the chemotherapy, the methotrexate is the worst one for me, where it completely takes all your hair and everything, so you look ill instantly after taking it. And I don't think it's the cancer what is actually making you look really ill. It is the drugs what really hammer the body. Of course, yeah. And you know, and because it is like it's not a targeted treatment. It's let's destroy everything, okay, and then regenerate the body. So the methotrexate, it burns all the intestines, you know, because it's so strong. So you imagine it, like I would eat one meal, then the next day would be like, you know, like I say, I don't cry about anything. I've had a lot of kickboxing fights and stuff like that, and you know, and I'm a man's man, and I've cried a couple of times in my life, but the only time I've cried a lot is going to the toilet after the day after with the treatment, because it literally were just unbearable, and you'd have to run a cold bath and then have a hole in your seat, and you'd be sat there. My dad would come and he'd be like, is it that time of day again? I'd be like, oh my God. So I ended up just having like one protein shake, you know, a day, because I didn't want to eat any food. So obviously the weight loss is rapid then. So, you know, I lost I walked around at about 14 stone generally. So I would have been about that weight then. And I think I were about 10 when I'd finished. But it was 3 cycles of the treatment. Right. So you did 4 weeks. And then they said to me, so this is where I'm optimistic. So I used to get upset about that, but I were always positive. And the nurses who I got good friends with, they'd come with the masks on, and to put all the drugs in. And you have what they call I've still got a scar here, a long line. So they put a steel tube round to your heart, right, with 3 valves, and that stays in there for about 6 months to a year. Wow. And it's so they can put the drugs in so it doesn't collapse the arteries. Right. So it just goes, so instead of putting cannulas in every single day, it just went in as one unit. It's called a long line. They use it for a lot of different people who have a lot of antibiotics and things like that. And so I had this like gadget hanging out my arm, and they used to come, the nurses, every single morning. You'd have like 4 or 5 different lots of drugs per day, and they would say to me, if you feel anything, just tell us and we'll stop. So I got really pally with this nurse who I got good friends with. And every time she went to put the injection in, she was a new nurse as well, like she'd just qualified. And she'd just start to push it, and I'd start to like pretend to fit or have like a reaction. And she'd literally go mental with me. And she'd be like, no messing around this week. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And I'd always do something stupid and just make her laugh. And they said to me, don't do any exercise, but I'd do press ups in the room and sit ups, even like, you know, even all the way through, which is all mad. But what were really, reason why I believe in the law of the universe and the law of attraction, and I've read a lot more than when I did then. And at the time, my cousin was a Reiki healer, and he said, you need to look into green juicing, alkaline, in meditation, affirmations, Louise Hay's stuff about visualizing and things like this. And this is my cousin from the local village who were known as a bit of a party boy and a beefer, but then had gone into this holistic Reiki type thing and read quite a lot of stuff. So all my family were like, get Craig to stay away from Stephen, because we don't want him doing any of that. We want him to do chemotherapy.
Yeah, want to stay on the medicine and not get sort of swayed.
Now knowing what I know now, and I think there's a big place for medicine and Western medicine. But personally, if anything happened to me right now, I would look at all the other options, before I was so hasty, because the chemo, I had pins and needles for about 2 years. I'm quite olive skin, so I go brown really quickly. And my skin pigmentation went really white for about a year. It came back, luckily. They said your hair could grow back ginger or red or blonde, and it grew back the same colour. Yeah, my hair came back really quickly, which was good. But I spent all that time in hospital. So it was around about a year, I would say, in hospital, in this isolation room. But the isolation room was funny because the doctors said to me, it would take about 4 weeks or so to 6 weeks for your white cells to recover enough so that you can go outside for a walk, then come back to your room, and then we can start treatment again once your body's recovered a little bit so we can hammer it again.
Yeah.
And I would say, I'll be fine in 7 days. And they'd be like, no, you won't. Don't get your hopes up.
And you actually won't.
I'm going to tell you now, and this is why I know law of attraction works. Oh, wow. I used to sit in bed before I'd learned anything about mindfulness or meditation. We're talking 15 years ago, If I was sat in the bed now, I would be meditating, visualizing my health and everything. But I used to sit in the bed, not ever watched a meditation or even knew anything about it. And when I look back now, I was like meditating. I'd sit there and be like, within 7 days, my body heals itself, my body heals itself, and I used to say things like that. And my dad would be like, you've lost your mind. And I'd be like, I'm all right. And I'm not kidding you, within 7 days, they would do my bloods and my white cells would be back up to like 3 or 4 or 5 from like nothing.
Yeah.
And the doctors would be like, this is madness. Like, you should be at least 4 weeks before it even starts to move, just eat, because you're not eating much food either, don't forget. And they were amazed. And then the second treatment, so you do it all again. And then he said, look, it's going to be 4 or 6 weeks. I think that were a bit of a fluke the first time. And I'd say, I'll be fine in 5 days. And I was.
Wow.
And then the last time I said to him, I'll be fine in 3 days. And the doctor said, you've no chance, Stephen. Like, we're quite amazed with what you've done, but no chance. And within 3 days, because they said you can leave hospital at this point to, go home, get some recovery. And I had a lovely little cottage, which I still own, so it was like beautiful. I bought it just before I got cancer as well, so it had all been renovated and I couldn't even enjoy it. I was fine in 3 days, the blood cells were enough, and I came home and I went through, and that was a bit of the cancer journey. But the thing what got me really into health and well-being is when I sat down about a month later with the doctors, and they've got all these paperwork and everything. They said, look, you've got no cancer present in your body now. We removed the tumours, the chemotherapies, the chemotherapies hammered everything basically. Yeah. But and this is what drove me to like learning more about everything what I do now is they got a piece of paper and it was like this, just a bit of scrap paper, not like a booklet or anything. Yeah. And they were like, you've lost like 4.5 stone, Stephen. So we need you to eat dairy, some protein dairy. They gave me these protein dairy shakes, which were full of whey and Gumtree and stuff which I would never advise a client on now, but like really processed. Yeah. Sugar, eat some takeaway food, get the calories in basically, 4,000 or 5,000.
Calorific, but not necessarily nutritionally good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, calorie horrific. Yeah, that's a good word for it. And nutritionally non-existent, you know. And I was saying to him, what about like I've been reading a little bit about green juicing or the Gerson's therapy, and they were like, they didn't know anything about it. And I was like, what about alkalining, and what about like having the right?
Just for people that don't know.
Yeah. What about having the right acids for my gut and stuff? Because I was like started to read some things while in hospital. Okay. And oh no, Stephen, just we'll see you in a month for another blood test, and you need to come every month for a blood test and every 3 months for an MRI scan. So you imagine the trauma in that, going back every month. So I went home and I was like, this is bullshit. So I started to get more interested, stop watching TV. You know, I didn't watch much TV anyway, but the TV went off, and I'd buy a book, or I asked Craig for the Gerson's therapy book and different books on, and I started reading and, you know, read The Secret. I started reading stuff about Jim Rohn and how you attract everything into your life. Jim Rohn is the guy who taught Anthony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, all the top,
wasn't he? Yeah.
He's the founder of personal development, if you like, and Wayne Dyer, stuff like that. Yeah. I started reading all this stuff, and I got this business which were earning, you know, doing well financially, and I just thought, I don't really want to do any of this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't want to. You know, why this advice is terrible. I'd go back to hospital and they'd say your bloods are like 13. They're unbelievable. Within a month, I bet. Right. They said to me, you'd not be able to train for 6 months to a year. I would train within about 2 weeks, you know, and within about 6 months, my physique was back to as good as it was before. But the problem was my gut health. Anything I ate used to give me a chronic IBS, and I'm talking healthy food, even a bit, you know, a little cheat meal. It just used to make my stomach blow. I'd have a 6-pack still, but it literally blow out.
Right.
And obviously chemotherapy.
Then, because we talk a lot about, you're going to talk about this sort of gut-mind connection, gut-brain connection, which is super interesting. When you were going through this period of recovery and you're sort of eating better and doing all this stuff and you're putting on weight, but you know that your gut, there's something definitely seriously wrong with it because you're getting IBS. What was your sort of mental sort of clarity or mental frame of mind like at the same time? Was that sort of, was that affected by your gut? If you back now?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll explain how that works now. Now I know why that was working. Back then, I just thought I'd got like a bit of trauma depression from the being in hospital for. Because you got to remember at the time, I was playing off about 3 or 4 at golf, you know, playing in Europe in different events and things. Not like pro, but just like in different amateur events, enjoying my life as a young man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So imagine being in hospital in a heat wave all summer in one little room with, I remember counting the dots on the ceiling, you know, that's, you're talking, there were no like iPads back then and stuff. It would, you know, we're talking quite a long time ago. But when I came out of hospital, I didn't really speak to anyone. And this is another thing. They didn't say, oh, do you need a coach or a therapist or a mind specialist or somebody who can reverse this trauma, what's gone into your subconscious? None of that. It was just, there you go, see you in a month.
Was that you're physically better? Let's be grateful, but they didn't focus on the mental health, did they?
No, and bear in mind, I've always been a super positive person, but I didn't used to speak about this to anyone. Yeah. But I used to have these moments where I'd be literally I'd be super happy, then really miserable or really like into a depressive state where I've always been like a bit of an extrovert. I'd go quite introverted where I'd stay in my cottage and I'd still train. I'd still train every day. I'd still go and practice golf. You know, I was working on what I wanted to do with my life. But I just, for no reason whatsoever, I would be literally snappy, moody, not want to meet up with anyone, you know, and for quite a long time. And if even now, if I don't look after my gut health, I can feel not my mindset, because mindset's different to depression. My mindset's always positive and wanting the best out of life and best for other people. But depression it's like it's triggering in. And the reason why that works is, from what I've learned over the last, you know, all them years of moving into why I started my own businesses, is you've got a gut-brain connection. So you've got your microbiome, and any pharmaceutical drugs, antibiotics, processed food, sugar, you know, all the food what they were telling me to eat damages that bacteria. So it makes, you've got way more bad bacteria then than the good. You'll always have some good bacteria in there, but if you've got lots of bad bacteria from the food you're eating, the processed food, that's why the gut swells, you know, like the IBS. And obviously there's things like candida, what can be formed from different sugars and eating and pharmaceuticals. But you've got a gut-brain connection with what we call the vagus nerve. So you've got your brain health, which needs to have a good source of omega-3, and then you've got this nerve which connects the two, and then you've got the gut bacteria. So you imagine I had all that chemotherapy, painkillers, tramadol, which is not great for your gut.
Yeah.
And then, so the gut biome is all messed up. And then obviously I'll have had not much omega-3 in my cells because obviously all the drugs and everything else.
Yeah.
So it was this physiology imbalancement in the body, which I believe, which were causing a lot of the, you know, the mental depression and things, symptoms. Yeah. I never went to meet anyone or spoke to anyone about it. I figured it out, you know.
You described it as, to me, as like a brain fog sometimes, right? That
yeah, like brain fog. Like there's different signs. So there's like depression can lead into anxiety, you know, forward thinking the future from the programming in your head. So I had a time where I used to think, this is what happened after cancer. I'd be like thinking, well, I could get it back. That'd be my subconscious belief system.
Right.
And my positive mindset would be, no chance, you know, I'm a healthy, you know, I'm good at gym every day, I eat really well. Then my subconscious would be like, yeah, but what if you get it back? So what happened was, I'd used to make good money, but I would literally blow it. It was almost like I was getting rid of things. Yeah, I just make quite a lot of money and I just get rid of it all. Because my mindset was thinking, well, my subconscious was thinking, when I look back at it now, you're probably gonna die anyway. So why not get rid of it? You know, when I really tune into the meditation, how I used to think back then.
Yeah.
So I used to literally, I'd go out on a weekend and blow like serious money, you know, on if I went out partying or in relationships. You know, the girl I was going out with at the time, I was like, you know, we'd been together quite some years before. I was just like, right, I don't need that now. I'm moving on with my life. And anyone who got close to me, within a few months, I would just end it. Yeah. And it's all to do with the thinking that you might die anyway. So what's the point? But being really positive at the same time. So it's quite a. So it's almost like bipolar, where I'm like super positive.
You're living really from a place of fear, but to the outside world, you're projecting, I'm successful, I'm cancer free, I'm super positive. But inside, actually being demonized by this subconscious belief that you're going to get it back and you're going to die. So what point did you realize that, and what did you do to change it?
So what happened was you know, I got rid of the stuff what I was doing with the engineering. Not got rid of, you know, like moved away from it. Did a personal training course, learned to be a personal trainer to start with. Did some nutrition diplomas, and I started doing PT, which were good to you know, get into helping other people, which I wasn't making nowhere near as much money as I was before. Girlfriend at the time, the new girlfriend at the time, thought I were a bit mental, but I enjoyed doing it, enjoyed helping people. Then I started to learn more about the nutrition. So I did some like diplomas in supplementation and, you know, food labeling and understanding food on a more holistic level. So that was the first introduction. And I do blood testing for food intolerances. That was the first like holistic movement. Then that moved me into a bit more meditation, mindfulness, affirmations. Started reading a lot of Louise Hay's stuff and Wayne Dyer's stuff on how that attracts. Obviously, The Secret's a great book as a starting point, but The Secret comes from a lot of the old ones like Wayne Dyer's stuff, which is more spiritual and deeper. The Secret just makes it easier to understand for people if it's the first point of call.
It's an introduction to that concept.
It's an introduction, yeah. But then I got introduced to a guy called JT, and he trained with Richard Bandler and the founders of NLP, John Grinder and Richard Bandler. And the girl I was dating.
Don't know what NLP is. It's neuro.
So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. Yes. So neuro being your brain, linguistic language, programming meaning the programming. And obviously I got this subconscious programming of, well, you know, I could die next year when I go back for a test, or I could have cancer back. I would definitely not have the chemotherapy again from what I've gone through.
Right.
So I were always like being wasteful, you know, like very wasteful, you know, especially with money and things like that. I would just get lots of it and get rid of it quickly.
Well, you know what? I mean, it just sort of touching on that though. I think when you fall into those sort of self-destructive patterns, it's a form of it's actually a form of being very unhappy with your situation and where you are. And did you feel maybe in a way that you didn't deserve to have all of this success and all of this wealth, because on some level you'd been affected by cancer and there was a high possibility you were going to get it again? Did at any point you feel that you got cancer for a reason? I mean, I know you've talked positive, but did you feel maybe I was bad, maybe I deserved it? Did that ever come
well, I thought I got cancer not for a bad thing, but I always believe that if you don't follow the signs of the universe in your conscious mind, if you're not conscious, and there's plenty of things to numb us to get us away from the conscious mind. That's why a lot of people are not doing what they want to do, because drink too much, party too much, eat too much crap food, which is all a numbing sensation. Right. Whereas when you really tune in and, even just stop eating for a few days and drink water, you can really tune into the conscious mind then, because you've not got all these distractions. And I honestly believe that I got cancer. I got appendicitis to find the cancer, to then start helping people with what I've done for the last, quite a long time. That's what I believe. But for a couple of years, I wasn't playing victim as such. I would play more like, well, poor me, I can still make money, but I might as well just enjoy it and spend it. And I went on like horrendous amounts of holidays. I'd go on like 7-8 holidays a year, snowboarding 3 times a year. I learned to snowboarding is one of my passions, and I used to go 3-4 times a year, some years with one of my friends, which is very like our gorging life.
It's a rampage of excess, but I think it comes from having that that sort of depletion for the year that you were in cancer and
exactly that, exactly that.
Probably the fear of, I've got to fill my life with all of this stuff, lest I'm in the same position and it's all gone.
Yeah.
So
and
get yourself.
This was the changing point. So I was seeing a girl who was a yoga Kundalini specialist, and she introduced me to a guy called JT who trained NLP with Richard Bandler and John Grinder, who created NLP in the 70s, and obviously Anthony Robbins trained with them, so it's, he uses a lot of that stuff for his coaching. And there's a lot of people trained with them two people. So I think Bandler were a linguist and Grinder were a psychologist, and they mixed the two together to get amazing results with clients within one session. Right. I call it like a breakthrough session. I use this with clients now. And obviously she introduced me to John T, and she said, why don't you go and have a little breakthrough? Because she could see my pattern where I was literally on the brink of just saying, see you later, for no reason whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah.
Like no reason whatsoever, even though we were dead close. Like no reason, like the slightest thing, I could be like, right, I'm gone. And I would not answer the phone again.
Right.
Like literally.
Like that.
Yeah, like that. Like no conscious with stuff like that. Gone. And I never used to be like that. I used to be like dead, like loving and, like super, super intimate and all that kind of stuff, which I was still that, but then I had this trigger. So it were even worse. So I'd be like this perfect, not perfect, I don't want to call myself perfect, but I would be like this person who'd be easy to, fall in love with, if you like. So I was dead conscious and dead aware of everything. I knew a lot of stuff. I didn't watch TV. Yeah, fun, have a laugh, could tell you about your nutrition, your training. I loved doing stuff outside. But then I could literally just do that for no reason.
Switch off.
Yeah, and it caused me a lot of problems with, especially with women. They'd be like heartbroken for no reason, because they'd be thinking like, all right, this is the one, and I'd be like, no. Wow. They're really bad, and then, I don't feel guilty anymore.
You realise that you were in a cycle.
I was in a pattern, yeah. So I went to see John T, and we did this 5-hour breakthrough session. Right. And I keep saying about not crying, and he literally had me in tears. And what he did is, and a breakthrough, just so you viewers know, your subconscious is building all the memories, the dreams, the traumas, right from from birth to where you are now. So from being a cesarean, from being birthed, the trauma of that. Let's say the child is, the parents arguing about something or whatever. All that is logged in the subconscious. Yeah. Although we might not think it's affecting them, it's always there. And then a child might get called something at school or whatever, and it's logged. Yeah. So we went back and how NLP works when you do a breakthrough, you put the person almost into a hypnosis state, and you're taking them back down the timeline of what's been triggered.
Right.
And you're taking them down this journey. And John did that with me, and we got to a point at about 10 years old, and it was my parents split up.
Right.
And I never thought they affected me that bad, because I used to they were good friends afterwards, and I used to live at my dad's, live at my mum's, I used to, lived at my dad's more than my mum's. And my dad taught me a lot of stuff about cooking and discipline, and, nothing's for free, and you've got to work to get your pocket money. And, if you want your bed making, you make it yourself. And, he was really strict, like almost regimental. But he went to this point, and at that time, my sister was at uni, my little sister was tiny. So I was like the middle child who was fully aware of it. And I never thought it affected me that much, but that was one of the reasons why I used to have relationships like I did. And I thought it was to do with the cancer, but it was to do with that, where I didn't believe in this long-term commitment with someone else and that it would last, because my belief system around family. And that's why I've never even thought about having children, getting engaged, being married, right up until like now. Now I've got a little girl and everything's changed, But for all them years, I've got all the qualities to do that, but the belief system in the subconscious had this program of, well, what's the point in getting married, because you can go through this horrendous trauma as a child if your parents split up. And so he basically unpicked that. And how he did it is, and which is what I do with clients, is he asked me today or back then to go back into that room as an adult, like today, and what I would do to the child to comfort the child.
Right. So basically, adult Stephen had to go in and talk to child Stephen, and provide that reassurance, love, and comfort that he never.
And we've got this inner child, and my inner child, that 10-year-old child, was the nightmare child, where if you slightly pissed him off, you would never see him again, like that. Right. And it's still there now. I have to be very conscious about it, because if I get into a little, if I've got a friend or something and they do something a bit like underhand, I could literally never speak to him again. Right. Like that, not even a conversation, just done. And I can feel it there.
Yeah, that's your trigger, right? But what's interesting is now, because you've got the self-awareness, you can catch yourself and go, actually, who am I operating as? Am I adult Stephen? That's coming from this place of kindness, love, compassion, or am I being triggered as 10-year-old Stephen? That's like, I'm going to cut you out because you to me represent danger. So and
that trigger. All the way through I used to feel it here, and it'd be like, and I could really feel it. I never knew what it was.
Right.
I just used to think it were either fight or flight. So like in my rugby days, somebody would do it, I would be the one who would fight back no matter how big there was. I wasn't bothered, and that's the little child. And then in relationships, it'd be like, danger, see you later. Yeah. And they'd not understand why. Yeah. And neither would I. I just have this overwhelming desire to leave.
Yes. It's so amazing how much of our adult lives are dictated by the traumas.
And it's dictated by a subconscious. So what John taught me is, and John became my coach, and I learned all my NLP with John. Right. So that's when I moved into neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and I'm going to be doing my masters with him soon. And he's a great guy. He's awesome. Like, if I could be as good as him in what he does, I'd be really grateful. And I'm learning. I read all the time about it, and I use it with a lot of clients. And basically, so at that point, and then he came forward, and we got the point of cancer, and about fear of death. So he got me as an adult Stephen to go to the hospital bed. This is when I was really crying, and talk to the ill Stephen and tell him what the life and the future is going to look like, and it's not about worrying about death and worrying about getting something back. And I did that, and I was like bawling my eyes out in this session with him. Yeah. And then he just went, pink potato or something, and I was like, whoa. And he was like, how do you feel now? And I couldn't feel that in a child.
Wow, really?
And he, it's like straight away. And he was basically like, he goes, that is your subconscious. And this is how I explain it to clients now. Imagine a river. Your subconscious is all the waste on the bottom, the old tires, the old junk, the memories. So you got the trauma from one to about 9 years old. And it could be something as little as, a child being told that they're stupid for doing something, and he's set in there.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really mindful what you speak to your kids like. And obviously I'm a new dad, and I say affirmations to Penelope. She don't even speak yet. And I tell her that she's strong. I tell her that she's brave. I tell her that she's secure. I tell her that everything's going to be perfect in her life, because I'm giving her that confidence. Even though she doesn't understand what I'm saying, she understands the vibration of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, and the love of what I'm saying. You know.
Yeah.
But obviously, a lot of children, you know, and some children, unfortunate children, go through a lot of trauma between about 1 and 9, and then that trauma is that riverbed of junk. And now I explain it to people: if you sit on the side, as you've got your conscious mind, your subconscious, and then there's something else back here, and it's who's controlling the ship. There's a great book called The Untethered Soul about this, if you're interested. And basically, what I try to teach clients is, if you sit on the riverbed, when something triggers you, you know, like somebody doesn't call you back, or your partner's out late at night, and that might have triggered an old trauma from when you was cheated on as a teenager, let's say, or whatever it might be. This subconscious will pick its head up, you know, it'll come out the river, you know, it'll raise its head. But it's not what your partner did, or it's not the event in the moment, in the present moment. It's the trigger from the subconscious from many years ago, what's making it 10 times as bad. And then obviously they forward think it, which then leads to anxiety, and then you become an anxious person within a relationship, let's say, and then your husband's like, God, you're crazy, and then you end up splitting up. And it's not because you was crazy or he was unreasonable, it's because your subconscious was still running this old program. NLP is basically, imagine your brain like a computer. You can take that old program out and reprogram it. That's why it's called neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
We can remove the old program and put the new one in with a couple of sessions. It's called a breakthrough session. And I've done it with yoga teachers who cannot teach a class after they've done all the training, and they can't understand why. And then I do a little breakthrough with them. And I did one with a girl who's doing really well now with yoga. And she, at 5 years old, got called silly off her dad for singing on a table in a restaurant. So when she went to speak in the class, she didn't even know it was that moment. She was like paralyzed, yeah. And we did a session, and it was this moment. She would just burst out crying as soon as we got back to this 5-year-old state. And she had a pretend friend called Daisy. And it sounds a bit kooky, this, but it works every time. And I said, what would Daisy do right now as a little child? And she said, oh, she's holding my hand. So I said, do you feel better? She's like, yeah. And she's holding her hands like this. And I said, hold your hands and imagine every time you're going to speak, or you go to an event, or you've got to do a class or a group of people, hold your hand and, you know, feel that Daisy's there. And now you go back as you and go and talk to the Daisy and you. And she like, you know, laughing, and we're eyes closed and everything. Yeah. And now she teaches classes all the time, and she's amazing. She wrote a great review about it. And that took 2 hours, where she could have gone back to a normal corporate job without that session, you know, which she didn't want to do.
Well, that is the power. That is the powerful sort of work that you do, and there's so many amazing people out of there. And you know, we live in a society where we're just taught that what we're experiencing now is a result of what we have or what we don't have. It's all about this here and now in this moment, but it's actually never about that, and it's never about the other person or a situation or a thing that you don't have or do have. Inner restlessness, or that many people feel, which manifests as anxiety or depression or whatever it may be, normally is always as a result of some childhood trauma that we've experienced.
Yeah. Or lifestyle as you get older, you know, you might have had a good childhood, and then lifestyle habits and things might have gone into that trauma as well.
Isn't it that we perpetuate some of those old beliefs? So say, for example, you were talking about the client that you had and the singing and the episode with her dad. In that moment, she would have made a judgment about herself, which is, well, I'm stupid and I can't ever do anything in public because
exactly that. Yeah.
Stupid. So then that narrative of I'm stupid then carries on into later on into life. But we mask it because we do have elements of success, and we're able to progress, and we may get an education, we may even get a professional job or do whatever. And then at some point that will rear its ugly head and it will be debilitating. But because we're not taught to make that link, we'll actually inwardly judge ourselves even more, and we reinforce that belief and make it stronger.
Well, you see a lot of really successful people it's is sometimes because they're trying to prove themselves to something that doesn't even exist. And it might have been a lack of love from the parents. It might have been a lack of recognition, you know. So like myself, because when my mum and dad split up, I used to be doing all these different sports and events and, you know, doing all the try scoring and winning all these trophies and all this kind of stuff. But mum and dad couldn't come to everything.
Yeah.
And my dad worked you know, in a career in the water industry, and my mum, you know, was supporting little Jade and everything else as well. So I used to, as a child, judge my mum and dad for not coming.
Yeah. Well,
as an adult,
were you judging them, or were you judging yourself and go, well, I'm not that important then? I'm not important.
Well, at the time, yeah, I was just like, I'm doing all these tries, I'm doing all this thing, and everyone else's parents here, you know, and you know, and other parents would be like, oh, Stephen's amazing, he scored all tries this week again, man at match again at rugby or wherever, at kickboxing or golfing, you know, he's played for a club and everything. Nobody ever come to watch me, and I'd be like, but I would obviously I love sport, but in later life, and I remember this, I can really look at this now properly, and I used to always think, oh, why should I go and visit my parents? They never come to see me when I was at school. So I used to be quite distant from the family. I've always known as Stephen, who lives the furthest away, or who's always on holiday, or is always doing his own thing, who never really comes to family events that much, even though I've got great parents, you know, and they did everything they could. But what I did a session with myself, you know, because you can NLP yourself. Yeah. And I was like, you know, how would Stephen now judge your parents then? And they were trying their best to keep a roof over their head, put the food on the table, actually give me the money to have the golf clubs and, you know, and the golf membership, because obviously they paid for that. And then I have a moment of gratitude rather than a moment of bitterness to say, oh, you know, they never actually saw me doing that. But what that did is that made me very determined to try and be successful, because I'm always, when I think about it, you're always trying to prove yourself to something, and it's what you're proving yourself to your parents, you know. But you give that, you know, and they love me to death, but I just probably didn't feel that from the not having the recognition, if you like. That's why you know, recognition for me is good. When I get a result with a client and a little testimonial, it makes me feel really good, because it's that recognition, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting because I've very much grown up in a community where your external presentation dictates your worth, or your, you know, or is a sort of earmark of success. So we were raised very much in that culture, which is, well, you know, forget who you are, this is who you need to be. And what's interesting in my own life is that I think my sort of journey has been very much based on that premise of I've got to do all of these things, and it's really been about getting acceptance and love, and then each time getting to that milestone and still feeling that sense of unfulfillment, and then having to have something else, you know, the next thing. Well,
there's a great phrase where you can get to the top of the mountain, and if you've not been present with people and love and connections on the process, you could probably jump off at the top. You know, and you see a lot of successful people who, you know, who are not here anymore, even though they've earned an enormous amount of wealth and changed people's lives, but not actually been fulfilled. And fulfillment comes from, I think, from doing what you love and a passion, but being connected. You know, earning wealth and everything else is important because it's the law of the universe. You need currency to flow to help everyone, and you know, for it to flow around, and you know, to pay the cleaner, to pay the guy, to pay this job, to pay that job, to pay the person, to pay the food. You need currency. Currency is not a bad thing. Currency is a great thing. But you need to be connected while you're on that journey, because too many people are looking at what I can have, where it's more like, what kind of impact can I do? You know.
Yeah.
I always believe success and money will always come if you're doing the right thing.
I think the basis is it comes down to, do you think you deserve it or not? And I think if we all worked on our deserving, the things that we want would automatically flow to us. You know, I think we block our own success. I think we block a lot of things goodness, because we don't feel inherently that we deserve it. And actually, coming back to your relationship point, you could be in the most amazing relationship, but no matter how amazing it was, you would get to a point where you would reject it because on some level you didn't feel deserving, or you know, you didn't. My mum and dad couldn't make it work, and you know, these are the two greatest people in my life that I know, because your parents will always typically are. Yeah. And if they couldn't make it work, I don't deserve it. So it's amazing that you've been able to overcome that, and now you're teaching it to your clients. What I find profoundly interesting about your work too is you've really focused a lot on inflammation, haven't you? Inflammation within the body, and actually what impact that has on our mood, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being. And as a result of that, I know you started a CBD business, but what I find fascinating is, and I've actually embarked on this journey with you very newly, is you talk a lot about the importance of omega-3 in the body to counteract inflammation. So as a basis, let's just talk about inflammation. What is inflammation, and what symptoms does it bring out?
So all inflammation, as a rule of thumb, leads to some sort of problem, some sort of reaction, some sort of disease. So it can go right on the spectrum from a bit of IBS to psoriasis, eczema, cognitive problems, ADHD. They're all a source of inflammation within the body. Okay, so all inflammation leads to many. If you Google inflammation and look at some diagrams, you'll see like chronic and autoimmune diseases and all sorts of stuff which start from inflammation. And the problem is, nobody knows whether you're in an inflammation state or not. And from me working with clients, I could do some mindset coaching. I could do some NLP breakthrough. I could physically give them the tools. I have an app with the physical aspects of training, so I know that they can aesthetically look good with the right calorie deficit. But the physiology of the body is, you know, what nutrients are we getting in, what omega-3 levels they are, and what's the gut health. Now, you can't do that just by saying, do 4 PT sessions a week and eat in a calorie deficit, because it only hits 2 of the branches. That's why I added mindfulness and NLP and affirmations to a client. You know, I don't personal train anymore. I have everything on an app for clients who want to do their own training in a gym. You know, I've got that available for people. But what I was really interested in, I learned bioresonance about 3 years ago, which is a sound frequency healing, and it basically scans the body. And a lot of people are coming up with, high levels of lead and mercury, deficiencies in certain things, and you could treat them with the frequency. It's a process done in Prague. It's quite an expensive process, but you can treat people and get the frequency right, but then people would come back with more problems, or it would have dropped off. And from speaking with, like, I'm in groups with lots of different nutritionists and holistic doctors, you know, like little, like Facebook groups where we all help each other, like little private groups. Yeah. And I was talking to some of the naturopaths who've been doing 25 years, and they were saying, you know, even bioresonance, even though it's a really cool thing with the energy system and the chakra system, meditation's great for, you know, when you go to a meditation class or you go to a yoga class, you naturally feel great afterwards, because the energy and the vibration has made your cells feel good. But if you've got a deficiency in omega-3s and certain deficiencies in minerals and vitamins, then it'll soon fall off. That's why you need to get that fix again. You know, so I was looking more at that, and I thought, how can we add this extra pillar what I'm missing with clients? So I met a founder of a company in Scandinavia who actually blood tests for the omega-6 and the omega-3. And just to keep it simple for listeners, omega-6 is in everything. So whether you're a vegan, whether you're plant-based, whether you're pescatarian, ketosis, paleo, whatever nutrition model you're following from a personal trainer or an expert, or you've just done your own research and you've made something up for yourself, or a Western diet, there's omega-6 in everything. And omega-6 increases inflammation in the blood. Okay.
Right.
Now, to keep it really simple, we're born with a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. If your mother had the omega-3 levels in her blood and she had some good omega-3 supplement or sea algae, and 1 portion of wild caught fish a week, because you can't eat too much wild caught fish because they're lead and mercury. Right. So my belief is you need to supplement, and there's a lot of problems with certain supplements, which I'll explain. Okay. But what happens is we need to be in a 3-to-1 ratio to be in a non-inflammation state. Okay. The average person at UK, and I've got over 500 clients who've done blood tests with me and use my omega-3, and I've not seen one below 8-to-1. Wow. But the average is around about 12 to 25. Wow. In vegans, I've seen it's always above 20, because they have no omega-3, DHA and EPA in their diet. Okay, they have ALA, they have omega-3 from flaxseed seeds and nuts, but the ALA doesn't transfer DHA and EPA quick enough in the body, so you need DHA and EPA. You can get it from sea algae, and I do a vegan version of the oil, which is obviously a big community of them kinds of people. And I when I work with vegans, if they've got any type of problems, I'll only work with them if they have the oil and the test, because I know that they'll be deficient in them things
So here's a question for you. With those of your clients that you're seeing are so out of sync with ridiculously high levels of omega-6 versus omega-3.
We're talking children as well, like, 10 years old children.
Yeah.
I've seen 10-year-old children as high as 64 to 1 out of balance. That's chronic inflammation in the blood. Now, the child might not have any health conditions that child did, but some children could be 20, 30 to 1 out of balance and not physically look unwell.
Okay.
But what I always say to mothers is what were your omega-3 levels in pregnancy? What were your diet like in pregnancy? Did you breastfeed or formula feed, which makes a big difference? And how much omega-3 has the child had since birth? Wild caught fish, omega-3 supplement, or sea algae? And the answer is generally nothing or very little. Now, omega-6 climbs in the blood because we've got to eat it. It's in everything. Now, we need a little bit. So imagine omega-6 like fire. We need a little bit for the body, for blood clotting, and to keep, it works in the body. Yeah. But omega-3 brings that inflammation back down. The problem is with the Western diet, UK, America, Australia. I have clients in a lot of different countries, but they literally, there's so much omega-6 in the diet and vegetable oil in it. A lot of the different in different cultures, vegetable oil is really high in omega-6, and there's no omega-3, so this level's climbing. And chronic fatigue and chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia and chronic cancers and all kinds of problems, it doesn't start when you get diagnosed. It starts way before you even had a problem,
right?
Because it's on that cellular level.
Yeah.
And reason why I get passionate about blood testing clients, so I can see the full spectrum of the omega-6 omega-3 fatty index, is I can say, right, today, Henna, you're 20 to 1 out of balance, which means you're in an inflammation state. You've got no omega-3 percentage in your blood. So it does like 6 tests in the test. So it does omega-6 to omega-3, which is a very important number to know if health's important to you. If it's not important, then there's no point in me speaking to a client. And I'm very blunt with that. I'm like, if health's really important, then you need to do this protocol, what I'm going to do with you.
Yeah.
It's not about you choosing what you want to do. This is how I work quite regimental.
Fundamentally important. And the fantastic thing is what you're saying is, irrespective of where you are, you can do something about it, right? You can change it.
Oh, yeah, you can completely reverse it with the oil. But what the problem is people will say, I used to eat really bad, but now I eat really healthy. I've gone vegan, or I'm doing plant-based, or I'm following ketosis, and I've lost all this weight. Now, losing weight doesn't mean you're healthy. It means that aesthetically, you look good. Yeah. I've tested clients who are 5% body fat and still 35 to 1 out of balance.
Wow.
Which is chronic, which is inflammation in the blood.
And they must have some kind of symptoms, like even if it's not sort of very...
that was sleep and joint pain, that one was.
Wow.
Okay. And sleep is so important for producing growth hormone and for recovery and, balancing the hormone system. Sleep is like one of the main things you need to get hold of, or it will ruin your health. Yeah. So basically, imagine this being your cell. Yeah. When you're 3 to 1 or less, then the cell's healthy. But as soon as you've gone past 3 to 1, 4, 5, 6, 10 to 1, this cell becomes hard. Wow. So the toxins can't leave and the nutrients can't get in. So I speak to some people and they say, I've been taking omega-3 for 25 years. I've taken omega-3 for 25 years. My blood results was not good.
Really?
They were okay on the balance. They were like 4 to 1 out. It's the best result I've seen in 500 clients.
Yeah.
But my cell protection was like nearly 0%, should be 90%. And I was still getting allergies. I was still getting food problems. I've been taking the oil now since I bolted it into the practice about 5 months, and I get no problems whatsoever.
Wow, okay.
And I've not had any hay fever whatsoever.
You've had IBS for a very long time. So what you're saying is now...
With the gut biome, yeah. So what the problem is with this is, you've got somebody they've gone past that 3 to 1 ratio, so the cell's hard. And then they'll say things like, I'm taking omega-3 from the shop or the supermarket or the herbalist or whatever.
Terrible.
But we need polyphenols to keep the omega-3 live. Now, fish get their omega-3 from sea algae. So if you're a vegan, we have a sea algae version with polyphenols. Polyphenols is the USP, which if you went into any supermarket and said, have you got omega-3 with polyphenols, they'd say no. Because omega-3 industry is a billion-dollar industry, 500 million users a day. They're my best clients because they already believe in it. I don't have to prove to them that omega-3 is amazing. But what I can show them is the product that they're taking is not working. And I see that like one after the other. People who've been taking it 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, and no matter what grade they've been taking, the results are always really low in the blood.
So if I'm popping into Boots and picking up an omega-3 supplement, I might as well not bother.
Yeah, you might as well just chuck 20 quid in the street or give it to somebody, somebody who needs it. So what the problem is, this cell becomes hard. And you imagine a normal omega-3, it comes in, you take it, and it oxidates after about 4 hours, so it doesn't do anything. Right. It's better to have a normal omega-3 than nothing at all. But it's not, that's why I see them numbers between 7 and 20 when somebody's been taking omega-3. If they've not had anything, it's more like 30, 40, 50. Wow. 64-1 in a 10-year-old child is like horrific, And it's not that it's bad parenting, it's just knowledge.
Because we're doing one for Rafi. Actually, I'm super interested to see what Rafi's is going to come back as, because Rafi can be a little bit hyper sometimes. And I'm curious to see what his omega-3 levels are. And then, because I'm going to get him on the oil regardless, and then I'm going to monitor. But I'm super excited that this is really like appropriate.
Yeah. Well, omega-3 is brain health, immune health, heart health, the 3 big ones. And then you've got another 20, the quality of breast milk, bone health, hair health, skin health, eye health, eye conditions, cognitive behavior, brain health. There's been so much white papers done now on ADHD in children. And then when they're tested, really lack omega-3, and then they're on omega-3, and that improves depression, anxiety, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But the problem is the product that I use, it stays live in the cell for about 38 hours, 40 hours, because of the polyphenols from early harvest olives. So it's not just omega-3, it's a proprietary blend of DHA, EPA, polyphenols, and vitamin D3. And then the vegan version has B12 in there as well, because obviously we normally see deficiencies in that. And it takes about 4 months to rebalance the cells, but we do a blood test on day 1, and then I send a second blood test on day 120 to show the client that the product's actually working. And we live in 2020, and for many years, like when I were a personal trainer, we're like, oh yeah, use that, try this diet, use that, do this, calorie deficit. Calorie deficit is important to lose weight, or calorie surplus if you're trying to gain weight, or maintenance. So it's really important to understand calories. And I teach that I could teach somebody that in 5 minutes if they're a new client, no problem. But it's the cellular health which is really important, and knowing that the actual products that you're spending money on are actually working cellularly, not just my PT told me to eat this, that omega-3, some multivitamins from the shop down the road. Is it working? That's my question to everyone. Is what you're taking right now, nutrition, supplementation, your regime, is it working on a cellular level? Because inflammation is the silent killer. It creeps up, and then you've got a chronic problem, and you're like, I've got all these problems, and it's like, well, the inflammation has been gathering over time, and that's why I get passionate about testing people. And if I'm working with somebody for health or somebody wanting to improve, that's the first point of call. I blood test, oil, then nutrition, and then obviously if they need mindset, NLP type stuff, and then exercise, I put it all together as one thing. Because I don't want to work with somebody just like half-heartedly. It's either all or nothing,
Because you want to see genuine results, and this is something that's tried. And
well, I want to stop that inflammation. Yeah, no, exactly. The inflammation is, I've had cancer, and I'm not trying to scare anyone saying, if you don't take a test, but it's a form of inflammation. So I would rather know, like my blood's like 2-1.
Yeah.
It's perfect. My girlfriend's blood.
Well, that's what we all aspire to be. I mean, that's the main.
No, but the blood. But my girlfriend, after pregnancy, we bought her. Before I started using this product, we were spending £100 a month on krill oil, 2 lots.
Yeah, which is the highest grade omega.
Yeah, highest grade, really expensive. No polyphenols in it though.
Right.
And we tested Charlie's blood 1 month after Penelope was born, and she had 1% omega-3 in her blood, no DHA and EPA in the cell fluidity, and her brain health, because it does a mental strength test, so the omega-3 around the brain. That was 5-1. It should be 1-1. So baby brain, postnatal depression.
Yeah.
The reason why it's so important to have a good omega-3 in pregnancy is the baby's brain is developed with DHA and EPA in 2nd and 3rd trimester. Now the baby doesn't care how little you've got. It will just take everything, and that's what causes postnatal problems, depression, obviously baby brain. And I noticed with Charlie, even taking the krill oil, she will literally forget her own email address. She's been on the balance oil, the actual proprietary blend, which is half the price. And she's literally, within 4 months, she's back down to 8 stone, cognitive perfect. She's a corporate surveyor, so she works in a big company as a partner, so she needs to be switched on. And she's thinking about going back to work in a few months because she feels like really good again now.
What's the thing about what you do is you start off with a blood test, so you sort of diagnose your clients and say, okay, these are your levels, and this is, and then you administer the supplements. So you do a combination of omega-3.
Yeah, prebiotic for the gut.
Tell us why the prebiotic is so important.
So we, if you remember early on in the interview, we have gut biome, we have the gut biome, and we have the brain connection with the vagus nerve. So imagine you've got some sort of anxiety, depression, and things like that, or you've got IBS or gut problems. Now, if you've had any processed food, especially alcohol really affects the gut, especially wine and stuff like that because of the yeast. It's very fermented. It's not good for some people do all right with it, but me, if I have a few glasses of wine, even now, I've got a good healthy gut. I can feel it trying to mess it up a little bit because I'm conscious about my health. I meditate every day, so I like tune in and try to feel how I feel. So basically, the oil makes the cells all back to a fluid state where they can absorb nutrients. The test just shows you where you are. The second test proves that the product's working. That's why I've never had anyone cancel, because they get these health improvements in the process, or they get themselves back to a really optimal, healthy state where all the other things that they're eating, if you're spending a lot of money on good quality food, you want to absorb the nutrients, okay? Yeah. The prebiotics help the good bacteria. So the problem is with probiotics, they're really expensive, and they've got only so many. Some have got like 1 million, 1 trillion different microbiomes, where our gut has trillions and trillions and trillions of gut bacteria. Now we need to feed the good what's already there. We've all got good. Even me, after all that chemotherapy, there's still a bit of good left. Yeah. It's like the veterans, if you like, but it will overcome by the bad. And the prebiotic is like a special blend of fibers, what you take in the morning, just drink, tastes really nice, and it populates the good bacteria. It starts working really quickly, like 2 to 4 days. The oil, couple of months to start getting into the cells, and a 4-month period to fully, rechange the cell fluidity. And then I have a multivitamin, which basically improves the immune system, because to get 23 essential multivitamins from a normal diet in this day and age, you could have done it 50 years ago, but in this day and age now, you would have to eat about 4,000 calories of really good quality, plant-based foods and different fishes and things. Now, even eating healthy, if your calorie maintenance is 1,800 calories for your body weight and how you want to look, if you eat 4,000 to get the nutrients in, you will put weight on. Even if it's all leaves and plant-based, you will still put weight on because of the calorie surplus each day. Yeah. That's just, you can't overeat. If you overeat healthy food, you still put weight on. That's just it's not as bad as like ramming loads of junk food down, but you still put weight on. So you have to have I believe, what I do with all my clients is I give them a multivitamin, which is all pharmaconutrition, which works synergistically, where it absorbs because of the oils, made the cells soft. The prebiotic populates the gut health, and our immune system is built in as gut, and a serotonin is built in as gut, which is the happy hormone. Yeah. So when I've worked with clients, and I've got loads of clients who've had depression, anxiety issues, I do the blood test. The tests are always really like, whoa. And the brain health is not good, the cellular health. So if you imagine the gut-brain connection, if you've got bad bacteria and no omega-3 around the brain, the signals are not going to be good from the brain anyway, because it's got no conductor. But then the signals from the gut are going to be all over the place. Yeah. And just, if people are thinking, well, my gut can't speak to my brain, and is that possible? I would ask everyone, have you ever felt anything in your gut? You meet the person you want to marry, or you have your first child, or you get told that you're pregnant, you feel it here first. Yeah. If somebody scares you, you feel it here. If a guy jumped in the window now with a gun, I'd feel it in my gut first. Because that's the gut-brain connection. We used to think that the brain communicated with the gut, but we now know with lots of research in the vagus nerve that the gut actually communicates with the brain. And if you're eating lots of processed food to numb yourself, or drinking lots of wine to numb that feeling, or antidepressants numb the connection, that's why they work, but they don't work. I like to get to the root cause and fix it, rather than just numb the problem or avoid the problem.
Right, and that's what sort of today's medicine does. It works on the symptoms, but it doesn't treat the root cause.
Yeah, and it's big business. It's big business. If you've got the food company poisoning people and the pharmaceutical medicating people, no one ever really gets well. Whereas if you change the approach the food, get your cells to the right balance, because that food is going to, it's really rich in omega-6, sort the cells out, absorb the multivitamin, absorb the prebiotic, which then obviously populates the gut bacteria, the mood, the serotonin. I have so many clients who ring me up, confidentially, the parents will ring me and say, he's come off all his antidepressants, what he's been taking for 10 years. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I don't tell anyone to come off any medication. I don't tell anyone not to have chemotherapy. I just say, look at this. Let's get your cells back in balance, and you make your own conscious decision. And because I teach them about meditation and affirmations and gratitude, as soon as they start to get into the conscious mind and the physiology of the body is working correctly, they're like, it's almost like a weight's been lifted, or I call it the rucksack of your subconscious. It's just been taken off.
Yeah, the heavy load's been carried.
The heavy load's been removed. What wasn't really even there, it was just a programming in the mind. And obviously some clients need a bit of NLP if it's traumatic stuff, but the average person who's suffering with depression, anxiety, and I see it a lot in men, is because they're forward thinking the future. There's a little bit of trauma, but they've medicated the problem with food and alcohol and junk, or, like partying or overeating or over drinking, to try and numb this connection, because that connection is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And you need to get the health right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's been so good, Stretchy. So I'm going to just summarize in a nutshell for everybody, essentially what you've taught us today. Number one, having a positive mindset is really, really important, but we've also always got to understand that at the root cause of some of our behaviors are triggers, maybe from things that we've been through as children. And it's really important to try and get to the root cause of those, whether you use a coach or, or you use someone to facilitate that. It's really, really important. I think only by getting that kind of clarity are we able to sort of be more present as adults and understand our behaviors and actions more. And then sort of from a very holistic level, we've talked a lot about that just sort of training and eating and looking aesthetically good doesn't always translate to you being actually internally healthy. Yeah. You were one of the healthiest people on the planet, and you developed, a very aggressive form of cancer. What you truly believe is that inflammation is the root cause of a lot of emotional, psychological, physical ailments, and that just by having a very simple protocol of a fantastic grade omega-3, one that your company provides in Zeno, and we'll provide a little link to that, a really great prebiotic, a substantial multivitamin, and probably a vitamin D, just by having a sort of very curtailed component of supplements can really, really get to the root cause of cell health, reinvigorate your cells, get you in an optimum working condition. And what you've seen in your own experience is that just by incorporating those protocols, your clients' lives have transformed dramatically. You said to me before you and I began this interview that you had a client that displayed some elements of being bipolar, so very, very, very happy sometimes and very, very depressed, but only sort of 3 months on your protocol, 3 months later, he called you and said, I can't remember the last time I crashed and I was down.
Yeah.
I just feel so much more emotionally stable and optimal. So, the great thing about what we've talked about is no matter where you are today, no matter how you're feeling physically or emotionally or sort of mentally, there's actually very, very simple things that you can do to change that. You're not stuck where you are, but feeling bad is your body's way of saying to you, you need to do something about it. These are just the body's triggers. They're the warning signs.
Yeah, the more conscious you become, the more aware you are of what you're doing wrong and right, and if you've got because we're 70% bacteria, that gut bacteria is talking to us all the time. Yeah. And it might sound a bit kooky for some people, but when you meet someone, when I meet someone, whether it be a client, whether it be a stranger in the street, I feel the energy instantly, and I know whether I want to, engage, speak, be aware, or maybe even become friends with someone. It's like me and you, we've not known each other that long, but we've become, we're friends, aren't we? And we've got a connection, and which is good because the energy is good, and it's all about that energy. And the bacteria, once it's all healthy in the gut and you feel good, you become even more aware. When I meet people, I think, oh, that's a character I'm not interested in, engaging with, and this person's very open, very loving, got some good vibration about them, and then obviously we can spare us time with the right people then as well.
Yeah, I think when we focus on ourselves and we get ourselves healthy and well, and we prioritize that, we actually start to make better choices in life. Yeah. And then the life we live is very, very, very representative of the inner choices that we're making for ourselves.